I'm ready. Let's do this. Hey guys, what's up? It's Ray. Welcome back to RayARCH, the channel that is all things architecture and stuff. For today's video, I didn't plan this, and this actually came to me this morning when I was just showering, and I guess that's where all great ideas come from. But I was watching the new movie on Netflix, To All the Boys I Loved Before, and I thought it would be a great theme for this video to create basically a video to all my past professors that I've had in architecture school. And I think this will be fun, and I'm ready to walk down memory lane, remember all these great stuff that I've learned. So obviously I've had multiple professors, I think about 10 or a little bit less than 10, and I'm not going to address all of them because I want to focus on maybe just one professor per year. Let's get right into it. So in my first year, first semester, first architecture professor ever was Professor Lee Weintraub. I think it was a good experience with him. It was, first of all, for me, architecture school was new, and the whole concept of studying architecture is bizarre and just so different from what I've learned in high school. So it was really refreshing to have him as a professor. He was spontaneous. He was really respectful to his students, and because of that, I had a lot of respect for him. And it's interesting because he was the stereotypical architecture professor or architect out there. But then he kind of dressed like Steve Jobs without the black turtleneck, but he did wear like a black t-shirt every day. I kid you not, every single day it was a black t-shirt with like denim jeans, cowboy boots, or like just wingtip boots. He was a very interesting character. From him I learned how to use construction lines, how to draft by hand, because I don't know about now, but like back then, every first year student had to learn how to be able to sketch and draw by hand first before moving on to computer programs. So I learned a lot from him in that department. He was one of the good ones out there, and I was really glad I was in his studio. So in my second year, second semester, I had Professor Nandini Bagchi, and she wasn't my first woman professor. She was actually, I think, my second, but she was great. I was really scared at first because when you're in architecture school, when you register for classes, a lot of times the students around you would have a lot to say about a certain professor. And because she's my second semester professor of second year, other students in second year, first semester have already taken her. And not gonna lie, she had a bad rep. And people were afraid of her. People were saying that she was really scary and that she's a harsh grader and that she's just so bizarre. So I went into my second semester of my second year really afraid because I was like, I don't know what I'm walking into. To be honest, I didn't really pick her as a professor. I was one of the last persons to register for classes, and she was like the only spot open. So I was like not knowing what to expect. And turns out she's great. So from then on, I learned to take everything that other people say with a grain of salt, because they might have their opinions about someone, but to me, I still have to figure that out myself. So it was really unfair for me to go into that class assuming that she is going to be a bad professor because of things that people said about her. I learned a lot from her. She was very conceptual. I remember there were a lot of things I would do in that studio where it was just out of my comfort zone. Alberto Foyo was... So here's the thing, I loved Professor Foyo. He was great. He was very different from other professors because other professors are more like, stick to the books. Do this, do that because you need to, because the curriculum says so, because the college, university says I need to teach you this. But for him, it was more like he kind of brought his own syllabus to the studio and he ran with it. And he didn't give a crap about what the department said. And that's what I liked about him. Is that he kind of really drove me to think outside the box. In fact, he taught me the term free thinking. Before him, I didn't know what free thinking was. I always thought in design you have to design this way, which will lead you to design this way, which will then lead you to do this. Whenever you're designing something, don't just focus on one small detail. Like, think outside the box and also think around what you're designing, because what you're designing isn't just going to impact that one user, that one client. Your design is supposed to impact the environment, something bigger than what you originally intend. He also had a lot of different terms that I didn't think could apply to architecture, like incubation. He initiated a studio project, meaning not just a group project, but it was a group project with everyone involved. So just one big team project of, I think, about 15, 14 students. So it was pretty huge. So what we did was we kind of transformed our studio space and we turned everything white. Like, we bought a huge amount of foam core and we lined our walls up with white foam core. We lined our tables with white foam core. We lined the columns, everything with white foam core. And during the presentation day, he had us all wear white robes. It felt like a cult, but it was really cool. Only because I feel like because it was a whole team project and he had very little to do with it. He just kind of gave us the assignment and had us run with it. We really owned the project. During presentation, we all presented together and we all had a thing to say about the whole presentation. So it was just an amazing experience, and I would not trade that for anything in the world. So in 4th year, I had Professor Joan Krevlin, and I think she might be one of my favorite professors ever because she was innovative and she was always forward-thinking. Also, I loved her firm. I still do. One of the projects she had worked on was the visitor center in Queens Botanical Garden, which I think is one of the most amazing projects and buildings in this country. She taught me a lot about sustainability. She taught me a lot about facade designs and just materials and specs, which is very important in the real world of architecture. She taught me a lot about details and how details affect a project immensely. I said this in a previous video already, but she was the one professor who pushed me to create a 3D model for my project. And it's crazy because she's my 4th year professor. And in the past, other professors have not pushed me. And I'm not saying like I need a push, but as a student, you really don't know what you're doing. And sometimes your professor is supposed to be the one who pushes you to do all those things. And I think it was my pleasure and my fortune to have taken her studio. So moving on to 5th year, which is also my thesis project year, I took Professor Lance J. Brown, which I also mentioned in my previous videos. He was a great professor. He was very engaging and he paid a lot of attention to each and every one of his students. And even outside of studio, like, we're Facebook friends and we're still keeping in touch after many years after I've graduated. He has always been there for me, so I felt like I owe a lot to him in what I do now because he taught me a lot about integrity, doing the right thing for the right reasons. He was a professor who wouldn't spend a lot of time with you, which I think is fine because when you're in 5th year, you kind of want to be able to be more independent with what you are doing. Like when you're in your 5th year, you shouldn't be asking your professor a ton of these simple questions, which you've already should have learned before you entered 5th year. So he was that kind of professor where you have to really understand your basics. You have to be very foundational with all your skills. And I think that makes a great professor because I don't need a professor who's going to hold my hand and draw every single line. I need a professor who knows that I'm capable of doing something and is just there to put me in the right direction when I need it. For me, I found him very helpful and very insightful. I was really glad that I'd taken him as my thesis year professor. So the last professor I want to address or direct this letter to or video to is Professor Irma Ostroff. And she wasn't any of my architecture professors. She was my art professor. And no, I didn't minor in art or second majored in art, but I did take a lot of art-based courses as electives. And I just think it was destiny, or like, I don't know what it was, but we had a connection, and from the first class I've taken with her, I felt like she opened my eyes to the art world. Before her, I didn't know anything about art. I knew how to draw, and I liked drawing, but I didn't understand what I was doing, and I didn't know that I can create shapes and forms just by shading. I always thought everything has to be done by drawing a line, or I have to use pencil, or I can't use other medium because it doesn't make sense, it's not architectural enough. But she taught me that there are many different ways to creating one result. I just appreciate her existence in my life, and I owe a lot to her. And she wasn't just there for me as an art professor, she was there for me as guidance, advisor, and just someone to talk to when I felt like I was lost in school. She always knew the right things to say, and she was a great role model to me because I feel like she's living her best life, and I really want to be more like her when I grow up, or after I graduate, or whatever. The sweetest person ever, and I recently attended her exhibit back in my school, and I saw her again, and I almost wanted to cry because I was like, you were like the best person in this building, and I couldn't have survived 5 years of architecture if I hadn't met you. Till today, she's always been like my go-to person when I need like a letter of recommendation. She always comes through for me, and I've said this exact same line in the previous video, but it's true. Like, she's someone who I can't imagine finishing architecture school without meeting or without getting to know, and I owe a lot to her. And I think I said that before, but I'll just say it again. All right, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Follow me on social media. I really just use Instagram and Twitter now, so I made it super easy for you guys. And I post a lot of life updates and just like real-time updates over there. And I'm thinking about starting an IGTV. I don't know what I'm gonna put up there, but I hope you guys follow me there in case I ever do put something up there. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell notification for video alerts and stuff. And I love you guys, and just stay creative. You got this, guys. Peace out. How do I end videos? I don't remember. That's how you end it. Bye.